Hello there, Tad Hargrave from marketing for Hippies.com. Today's video is about trauma-informed marketing. So I'm no expert in trauma. I've read some books. It's not my particular field of study, but I wanted to share some reflections I had because this was something that came up probably a year ago, or two maybe, and people kind of collectively wondering, what is trauma-informed marketing? And I realized that it's actually not so different from the way I suggest marketing anyways. So when people get traumatized, people go into a kind of reaction. Yeah. And as we know, there's usually the four types, the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn as a response. And these things are good to keep in mind because we don't want to trigger people into some kind of reactivity. And of course, a lot of people have grown up with an immense amount of coercion, punishment if they didn't go along with the party line in their family, at their job, in school. And so people carry, even if it's not full-blown, what you call boom-boom trauma, is this drip-drip trauma, constantly wearing them down. And one of the consequences of this is people have a very hard time saying no. And I did a video about this years ago, our desperation for clients combined with their difficulty in saying no, that's a bad combo. One's romantic hunger combined with the difficulty of their partner saying no, that's a bad combo. So that's where we're at. I think that's just the current lay of the land. We're in the middle of a very volatile cocktail of dynamics. And we don't want to make it worse. We don't want to deepen the wounding. We don't want to create more hurt. So then how do we go about marketing in a way that's not preying upon the weakness, but being a part of protecting people? And there's a few thoughts about this. First, this is where the permission-based marketing, we're getting consent, is so important. And tricking people into buying from us, these kind of underhanded bait and switch tactics, these are where these are particularly a no-go. Because one of the responses of trauma is people can fawn, or they can freeze, and it seems passive, like, oh, they just went along with it. They signed the contract, didn't they? They said yes. They may have just done that because they were so activated, and that was their way out of the stress, was to agree with you, to say yes. And of course, one of the consequences of that is that they may ask for a refund later, so you got that to look forward to. But also, they might join your program, not participate, or join it and participate, but it's really not a fit. And so permission is one thing we need to really look at. Do we have, permission to have certain conversations? Or do people suddenly find themselves trapped in a pitch? Hey, let's go for lunch sometime, and all of a sudden it's an hour-long pitch from you. A tactic of some of the less scrupulous multi-level marketing companies. Or you go to what you think is an evening educational presentation and it's a pitch. Well, if you've got all this unresolved hurt in you, and maybe you're stuck in the freeze response or the fawning response, you're not going to leave that room. It would be too confrontational. So you just stay and suffer and maybe play along because that's what you think you're supposed to do, to be nice, to be the good girl, to be the nice guy. So permission is one thing. Being very clear with people what they're getting into, not tricking them. The second big one is slowing down. Speed is when somebody's activated, they're likely going to be in a reactive place if it's moving too fast. I remember one of the best pieces of advice somebody gave me around if you say yes too much, you have difficulty saying no. You just develop the habit of somebody says, hey, can you help with this? You say, oh my God, I would love to. Let me sleep on that and get back to you. let me check a few things and get back to you. Never make the commitment in the moment. Yeah, it's really good advice, because in the moment, you're probably going to do something you regret. And yet, isn't it strange, so much of the marketing is about getting them to make the decision right now. So on a personal level, we understand, taking space to decide, having a clear head is a wise idea. But then so much of the sales and marketing stuff is about do everything you can to eliminate that space and time for them to think about it, so that they're more likely to what? Say yes. Not more likely to make a wise decision for themselves. And so that can look a number of ways. My colleagues Jeffrey Van Dyke and Suzanne Falter Barnes, they had a weekend workshop, but of course they had a shameless plug in there for their coaching programs, which they did on the Saturday night, and then they told people, you are not allowed to sign up tonight. We're not taking any orders tonight. Why? Because this is a lot of money and we want you to sleep on it. You need to think about it. And like, if you could let us know tomorrow if you're gonna, that would be great, and a mercy on us, logistically, and just to know how many people we probably are working with and what we're gonna have to do with our marketing moving forward. If you're gonna do it, if you could do it tomorrow. And maybe they offered some deal, but they insisted people sleep on it, which I thought was beautiful. Another move is, let's say you have a one-on-one conversation with somebody and say, I'd love to maybe work with you. You could kind of close the deal right there, but another thing is you could say, I'd love to explore that with you. Let's set another time to talk about that. And I can send you some info to look at in the meantime. So then you send them the full sales letter, you send them with the write-up on the thing, and a few days later you talk, or the next day you talk, but you ask them to read through it. Slowing down the sale will lose you sales short term, but the long term it will make you sales, because you're going to be having people who actually want to work with you and who are a good fit, which means they're going to get good results, which means they'll tell their friends, and so you get an upward spiral of word of mouth. I remember I met this woman, Danielle, this was over a decade ago in Edmonton, driving home from performing at Theatre Sports, and my friend Nikki was driving, and she said, hey, do you mind, my friend Danielle just got back from Sweden, and she's out in the West End, do you mind if we drop her off first, even though it's a little out of the way? And I said, no, that'd be great. So we got in the car, we were driving out, and she's in the back seat. I said, oh, you're in Sweden. I said, what were you doing there? She said, I was doing a master's program on business sustainability. I said, oh, were you doing the natural step? And she looked at me, just, how do you know what the natural step is? And so I said, well, I know a lot of things. So let's go for a chai sometime at Remedy, and we'll I'll hook you up, because she wanted to get involved locally, was part of the thing. So we met up. I said, yeah, what are you interested in getting involved in? Oh, sustainability things, environmental things, and I was saying, well, there's Greenpeace, and we had an organization called The Local Good, which is still around, thelocalgood.ca. You can check it out. And we had an event we did called Green Drinks, which was a mixer for folks in the sustainability scene. Yeah, what a time. And I was going to invite her to get involved with that, but she seemed so swamped looking for a job. And I could just feel the overwhelm. So I didn't ask. So this is part of trauma-informed marketing, is sometimes you can tell it's not a good idea to ask. You can just feel that, no, not now. I'll save it for later. You don't push it. So I didn't. As I'm getting up to go, I'm all bundled up for winter. She says, but I'm really good at organizing events. If you have, I took off my knapsack, sat back down, and I said, well, look, obviously there's Green Drinks, and we could always use help there, but I said, is there an event you have in mind or something you would like to organize that you'd be passionate about? And she said, yeah, in Guelph there was this thing called the Resiliency Festival, and it was 9 days, and every day there were a few workshops on all reskilling, traditional skills, primitive skills, permaculture, even maybe emotional resiliency. It was just sounded fantastic. When I heard it, what I realized was there was nothing like this in Edmonton. There was a traditional skills group. There's like bushcraft people. There's the anarchists with their free schools. But there was nothing like that festival that pulled it all together. So I said to her, look, Danielle, I can't speak for everyone else on the team of The Local Good, but speaking for everyone, we're in. And this is what I said. I said, look, what you've just proposed is immense. That's a huge amount of work. And even as I just said that, and you kind of check yourself and recalibrate how much work it is, it's more work than that. So I said, I tell you what, take a week. Please take a week and just think about it. And if you want to do it, I'll hear from you, and if not, I won't. So this is really rolling the dice, but it's also what it's saying to the person. What it was saying to Danielle is, I trust you to make the right decision for you. And a week later, she wrote me an email, said, I've thought real hard about it, I want to do it. And we did that event for, I think it must have been 6 or 7 years, and then the lockdowns, and it didn't happen. We'll see if it comes back. But it was an amazing event. Every time Danielle and I would see each other, we'd just be overjoyed, and look what happened as a result of that going for chai. But I would also say as a result of slowing it down. She got to feel like she was really a choice in signing up. Another example of this was a dear colleague of mine went to a seminar, one of my colleagues, marketing colleague, and of course she went in, I'm not going to buy anything. I'm not buying it, not signing up for any damn coaching packages. But there's all the love bombing and the excitement and the good vibes that get created at these things. There was a pitch, and she signed up for a $10,000 coaching package. Shortly afterwards, realized this is probably a mistake, and what happened? And I asked her this question. I said, when you went to sign the contract, did they slow you down? And did they say, let's just go through this contract carefully together so you really know what you're signing up for? She said no. So, she's responsible for signing the thing, but they're responsible for slowing it down. So permission, slowness, and the last thing I would say, and I say this all the time, but maybe you'll hear it differently in this trauma-informed lens, is making sure that your agenda is really well and truly to get to the truth of if it's a fit, not to get them to buy. That's a really big deal. If your agenda is to get them to buy, you will manipulate. And if somebody is really traumatized, you'll either get a volcanic reaction from them, or you'll get a kind of collapsed passive and then go ahead with it. Fourth thing I would say around this trauma-informed marketing is safety is such a big deal. I remember somebody describing trauma as whatever the event you went through was, it's still happening in your body. It's not done. It's still going. The nervous system is hyper vigilant. It's in that place that that event is still happening and could happen again at any point. So one's always on guard. And so we want to be very, not just slow, but give them a lot of safety that they need. And that safety takes the form of letting them check you out from a distance. In the movie The Horse Whisperer, spoiler alert, there's a really traumatized horse. And Robert Redford, who's the horse whisperer, goes out into the field, and he doesn't approach the horse. He just sits there. He knows the horse knows he's there. He's aware of his presence. And he just sits there for a whole day, I think, 12 hours, and just waits until the horse comes to him. So letting them see us out of the corner of their eye and approach us rather than us approaching them, I think is a wise idea in a world that's so full of trauma. So that's the YouTube videos, that's your social media account, that's a book you've written, that's a podcast you do, or all the interviews you've done. These are ways that from a distance, your website, people can check you out and see if it feels safe enough to approach you. And then of course, again, when they approach us, we don't pounce on them. When they approach us, there's still slowness. There's still an orientation of, is this a fit? There's still the courteous seeking permission of even having the conversation about working together. All of that is still there. There's the slowing down the sale. And I guess number 5, the last thing I would say is this reducing the risk. somebody's been through trauma and their nervous system's activated, risks are much, they're magnified, I think, for us in that kind of situation. Something would be a small risk. Oh, I'm going to be in a group of new people. Well, that's uncomfortable, but it's not scary. For somebody who's been traumatized, it can be really scary. And so if you can help them see all the ways you've gone about reducing the risk for them. I was at one workshop, and it was a book called Love, Intimacy, and Sexuality by the Human Awareness Institute. And at one point, they said, if you'd like to take off your clothes, you can. Can you believe it? And the beautiful thing was, there was literally zero pressure on it. I know what you're all wondering. It's none of your business. But there was anytime somebody didn't, and a lot of people didn't, they thanked them for making the choice that felt right for them. Thank you so much for participating in the way that you're participating. It was so beautiful. They would do activities, where you could be with a partner, maybe touch them on their face. But the very first exercise was you go ask somebody, may I touch your face? And they had to say no. Because it's important that everyone gets used to hearing no and respecting a no when you hear it. And it was one of the safer places I've ever been in because they were so okay with no. And they thanked people for it. And there was no coercion, there was no persuasion, there was no sense that participating in this way, in this exercise, is the right thing to do. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Those are some of the main thoughts I have. But I think if you look at a lot of the marketing work I do through the lens of sort of trauma-informed, you'll see it's there. It wasn't intended, but I do think it's there anyways. Yeah, there's just so much also. Maybe number 6 is connected to all of this. And this is impossible if your agenda is to get the sale. It can't be done if the agenda is to get the sale. But if your agenda is really to get to the truth, really to see if it's a fit, one of the things this opens up is your perception to see when they're uncomfortable. And that you can, when they're feeling pressure, because pressure, it generally is no good, and if somebody's carrying a lot of trauma, extra no good. And so if you notice that they're feeling pressure or perceiving pressure, even if it isn't there, it's a very key move, and thank you to Ari Galper from unlockthegame.com for this. There's a kind of posture of you lean back, you check in with them. You say, hey, can I just touch base? I just want to reaffirm my agenda here is not to get you to buy or to sign up. I just really want to have the conversation to see if it's a fit or not on both sides, and no pressure on this at all. Also that kind of phraseology of, hey, no pressure. One of the things that will create pressure instantly is walking in with the assumption that what you have is a fit and that they need it, because then you're just going to push them to buy. So when we send emails saying things like, hey, no pressure, I know you must be busy, I'm not sure if this is a fit, you can say those things in person too. It's like, look, I don't know if this is a fit for you, I don't know if this is going to be the right thing for where you're at in your life. So, no pressure, no big deal either way. A yes is just as good as a no. I'm just trying to see if this is going to be a good match on both sides for both of us. And that we slow down. Even physically, making sure we're not cornering people. Like if you're in person having this conversation, you don't sit in such a way they can't leave. Making room for people. Always giving people that out. And letting them know that you'll happily even walk them to the door and bless them on their way as they go. Not expecting people to stand up for themselves. How many of us have been in a massage and it didn't feel good, something felt weird or strange or painful, and we didn't speak up. So we have to understand people are not going to speak up 90% of the time. And so then it's on us to take that extra step to check in, to be aware of what they might be carrying. And you'll have to translate a lot of this for your own work, because it's different from my work. So I'm going to leave it there. This is one of the longest videos I've done in a while. I would love to hear your thoughts on trauma-informed marketing. If you've got any thoughts, reflections, ideas, please put them in the comments below. I bet we'd have a real rich, robust conversation there. Thank you so much. Take care.